The NHL grind pushes on, and with July 1st on our doorsteps, we're taking a look at the top unrestricted free agents that are going to have big time fantasy value for the upcoming drafts. Welcome inside the lab, everybody, to the Thursday episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're almost through one more week of springtime hockey action. That's why you're tapped right back into your daily source. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Steele and Flip. Shout out to the everydayers making us your first listen every single day. We see you and we appreciate you. We wouldn't be here without y'all. Make sure you smash that subscribe button. Drop us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. It means the world to both Steele and I. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Steele, happy Thursday, brother. Hopefully the weather is treating you well up north in cottage country. Down here, South Niagara, it's a beautiful morning, and it's a beautiful day to talk about hockey once again. And yeah, we're going to get to the playoff coverage, of course. Rangers-Panthers, Game 5. Back in MSG, Steele, looking at these odds, because you know we're going to get to our same-game parlays, our bets for tonight. The Rangers are underdogs in Game 5 on home ice, getting plus money. That's an intriguing angle I want to talk to you about. Game 5, there's some angles that are going to matter in this one. Can the Rangers tighten it up a bit? We'll get there, but the top pending unrestricted free agents, July 1 Steele is going to be here in a hot minute. And there are a number of very intriguing names. I know you got a couple of interesting ones, maybe under the radar perhaps. But these guys, Steele, depending on where they go, you really have to have an eye on it because, yeah, of course, there are going to be fantasy relevant, all of them. But where they go, do they stay? All of those things are going to impact value, and you got to keep your finger on the pulse. So over to you, brother. Top UFAs that you're looking at. Hit me with a couple of names.
Yeah, I'll start off with my first guy. And we've talked about him quite frequently since he was traded at the trade deadline, and that's Jake Guentzel of the Carolina Hurricanes currently. UFA, just looking at his last deal, he signed a 5-year, $30 million deal in 2018 with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Obviously, he was traded to Carolina this past, just a few months ago. 77 points in 67 games. On pace for 94 points, which would be a career high for him this past year. So he had a really electric season with both the Penguins and the Carolina Hurricanes. Most points in NHL history by a player traded at the deadline as
That's
well.
A good one.
So
it's a good stat.
He was really incredible when he got to Carolina, even throughout the entire postseason as well. I love the chemistry he showed with Sebastian Aho on that top line, even just being in the top 6. So I believe Jake Guentzel, he's going to be looking anywhere from $8.5 to $9.5 million. He was making $6 million on his last contract, and I think that's exactly what he deserves. And honestly, I'd put him right there at $9.5 million. And just to throw some other NHL names at you that are making that kind of money: Braden Point, $9.5 million; Adam Fox, Zach Werenski, Matthew Tkachuk, Jamie Benn, and Mark Stone, all those guys making $9.5 million right now. Jamie Benn actually having one of his best seasons as well with the Dallas Stars, clearly still in the playoffs. But at 29 years old and having, again, what could have been the best season of his career, which he was on pace for 94 points, I think he's looking for a payday right now. He signed his 5-year deal, a little bit of a shorter term deal with Pittsburgh. He gets traded, which I think he was a little bit disappointed with because, obviously he loved playing in Pittsburgh, loved playing with Sidney Crosby, but now he's got this opportunity. Yeah, I know who wouldn't, but now he's got this opportunity in Carolina to really be a force to be reckoned with for a very long time, alongside, like I've mentioned, Svechnikov, your boy Seth Jarvis, Sebastian Aho, all these players. And he wants to get paid. He's looking to get paid. And I think $9.5 million is exactly what he should be looking for because of what his status and what his skill set brings to the table.
Steele, Jake Guentzel coming into the Carolina Hurricanes obviously brought with it a lot of positive vibes into a team at the time that already had a bunch going for it, including winning on the ice. They got Freddie back. I was kind of riding that momentum train. They just ran into the New York Rangers. And the Carolina Hurricanes are obviously one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference over the last number of years, and they should return to that status next year with most of the core coming back. I know there's some question marks for sure to be had, including who we're talking about in Jake Guentzel. But I think the point that hits home the hardest is his connection with Sebastian Aho. And a lot of people wondered what was the production going to look like away from Sid, like you alluded to. But he can get it done with whoever is the elite pieces in the top six that he is playing with. So I'm here in terms of the money that he's going to get. I actually think he'll return to Carolina just because of everything we just said. I
100%.
actually don't really see him hitting the open market whatsoever. It's already sounding like he's indicated he very much wants to return to Carolina. So for me, in terms of fantasy value, that means you can feel safe about him returning to a really good team, meaning, and you know me when it comes to Seth Jarvis, I really do think that's the top line there. I know it was mixed around a little bit. Svechnikov's up there as well. Jarvis, Aho, and Jake Guentzel are a really good top line, and I think Carolina is comfortable with that. Moving forward, let's move forward to one of my guys, Steven Stamkos, UFA. A lot of intriguing storylines around this player due to probably mostly media hype. The likelihood is he returns to Tampa as well, Steele, but I'm going to say the door is much more open for another possibility, not like Guentzel, who we see going back to Carolina. Steven Stamkos is still a stud. 40 goals last year, Steele, at 34 years old. And yeah, that's the caveat you have to look at here with his contract and obviously his fantasy value. This is a guy in the past that has dealt with very serious injuries. He's going to be 35 this year. To me, though, Steele, coming off of an 80-point, 40-goal performance, wherever he goes, and I really don't see him leaving Tampa, so that means, again, another player on a good team, Steven Stamkos is still very much fantasy relevant, and I wouldn't feel comfortable taking him much past the 5th or 6th round, even with those caveats that I just mentioned. He might even go higher.
I think he should go higher than the 5th and 6th round. I think the 4th round probably is where exactly Steven Stamkos should be landing.
Got to throw that out there.
Yeah, I know. Hey, look, this is something we're doing right now. We got to look at the ADP. We got to look at the status of every single player. But I would feel very comfortable taking Steven Stamkos in the 4th round right now. Yeah. Maybe even a little bit
5th or 6th. 6th is too late for sure.
It's a little bit late. That would be a steal in my opinion. And yeah, just looking at what he's been capable of doing. Again, I know the injury history of this player, but the last few years he's been very healthy for them, and he's been getting it done. And so is Nikita Kucherov as well. Going back three or four seasons ago, he missed an entire season pretty much, and then he comes back and look at what he just accomplished this year with Tampa Bay, scoring over 140 points. So, I mean, I feel very confident and comfortable with Steven Stamkos' health, where he is at right now with his health and what he's doing on the ice. He doesn't have to be that guy all the time. Like we've seen, it can be Nikita Kucherov. It can be Braden Point. It can be Victor Hedman. It can be all these other guys, but he's going to get his own. All he has to do for the most part, sit on the power play in what we like to call Ovi's office over there by the hash marks, by the circle, and just wire slap shots.
One of the best one-timers you've ever seen, for sure.
One of the best one-timers in the NHL right now. Probably second right behind Alexander Ovechkin still. And we know that he struggled scoring goals this year. But what Steven Stamkos has been able to do, so I would be very comfortable with taking Steven Stamkos probably in the 4th round. Jake Guentzel, I think Jake Guentzel would probably be right around there in the 4th or 5th round as well, maybe a little bit higher. We'd have to continue looking, have a closer look at all these players that we're talking about and all the players that we haven't talked about. But I'd feel very comfortable with Steven Stamkos in the 4th.
And we will continue to do that the rest of the summer, teeing up the next upcoming draft season. Steele and I have you covered. We're doing breakdowns, positions, sleeper picks, under the radar picks. We're going to do all of our favorite top 10 countdowns all summer long. Around the break, we're going to continue to talk about these UFAs because, Steele, some of these guys will be on the move, and that's going to impact their fantasy value. We also got Game 5 tonight. Rangers-Panthers. It's going to be a slobber knocker, and we got our same game parlays ready to ride. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets to the NBA Finals even faster and easier, and prices on Game Time actually go down when it gets close to tip-off with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices and views from your seat. and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. You never want to be confused when you're having a ticket buying experience, Steele. You know how much we love the Game Time app, so you want to be taking the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account at LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, the follow button, leave a 5-star review, and make sure you're going to check out Locked On Sports Today as well. If you're having to turn down the volume with all the shouting from Fox Sports or ESPN, you have to make the switch to Locked On Sports Today. It's a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, news, opinions, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And once again, thank you so much for tuning in for our team's podcast, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, making it your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe, follow button, leave a 5-star review, and follow us at our new Instagram account, Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod. We really do appreciate all that love and support you show us. Continuing the conversation, though, of unrestricted free agents heading into the offseason. I know we both got 2 players from the Florida Panthers. I'm going to kick it off with my player, and I'll tease it up for you. But Sam Reinhart has to be discussed. He has to be talked about because of the incredible season he's just having. I'm going to have a little bit of a history breakdown of what his deals have been throughout his career. Sam Reinhart is looking to cash in this season. He has had the best season of his career without a question. It has been an unbelievable year for Sam Reinhart. But just a little history of his deal so far. Signed a 2-year deal worth $7.3 million with the Buffalo Sabres. Then signed a 1-year deal with the Buffalo Sabres for $5.2 million. Then signed a 3-year deal worth $19.5 million with the Florida Panthers. They've all been very short-term deals, 1-year, 2-year, 3-year deals. He's 29. He's 28 years old, turning 29 in November. He's coming off the best season of his career. He's looking to cash in as much as he can. It doesn't seem like he's going to be capable of doing that again. I don't think he's going to be able to score 50-plus goals once again.
No.
Is he going to be a valuable fantasy hockey player? Of course he is. Is he going to get a lot of points still and a lot of production in the offensive zone? Of course he will. But 50 goals for a guy who just did it for the first time in his career and, has been a perennial 20 to 30 goal scorer. I think that's exactly where, he's going to regress in the goal scoring department, but is 40 goals out of the question? It's not out of the question. He can probably still get 40 goals, but again, comparing Chris Kreider from 3 years ago when he scored 50 goals as well, or 52 goals, both those guys had 27 power play goals that season. They were pretty much rocking at 50% of their goals on the power play. And I just don't think that's likely for a guy who just scored 50 plus for the first time in his career. And so when I look at that, and when when you look at that, having the best year of his career, scoring 57 goals, how do you determine Reinhart's contract and what he deserves to make? Because it's very difficult because between having $30 million invested in 3 players right now in Bobrovsky, Tkachuk, and Barkov, and having less than $20 million in cap space, and also having to re-sign, I know you're going to talk about him, Brandon Montour, and a few other guys. I don't know how they get it all done. I'm not sure they're going to be able to sign both Brandon Montour and Sam Reinhart because I think both guys are looking to cash in this year. But Sam Reinhart, regardless of what his contract is, I mean, depending on where he goes, he is going to be a very high sought out commodity fantasy wise, because even though I don't believe he's going to get 50 plus goals again, I think 40 plus goals is very in the realm of what he's capable of doing, especially now of how he's playing, getting into his prime and how he's dominating on the power play, 5-on-5, shorthanded, whatever he's doing out there for Florida. But regardless, he's going to be a sought out commodity. I'm not quite sure. If he re-signs with Florida, he's going at least 5th round or higher, 4th round or higher. Depending on where he signs with and who he's playing with, I think 5th or 6th round for Sam Reinhart would be pretty admirable.
There's a few angles here, and Sam Reinhart
Yeah.
is obviously going to be a hot topic. And we haven't even finished playing. He's not even done playing hockey this season. So looking at his contract, that Bill Zito, number one, that's Bill Zito. So I think if anybody knows how to handle this, it's Billy Boy. But 6.5 for 3 years is what he got before. And the points that you made there all hold unbelievably true. And the comparison to Kreider is a very accurate one in terms of how do you predict what he is going to do next season when really those guys hover around the 30, 35 goal mark, on a good year at the high end of the 30s, and then you pop almost 60. It's very hard to predict what they get paid. Where they go fantasy-wise, I'm with you, Steele, but we don't know what Sam Reinhart really wants to do other than get paid. So if he wants to go to maybe a smaller market team, I don't know who that would be. I'm just trying to think of when Johnny Gaudreau pulled one out and went to a very random spot in Columbus when we expected him to go somewhere else after a couple of big seasons. I'm not trying to compare the two players who are very different styles, and I'm not even going to go there with Johnny Gaudreau. But if Sam Reinhart does decide to just take the bag and go somewhere else and leave one of the best teams in the league, then I say I'm a little bit wary of where he goes because he ain't popping 57. He's definitely not rocking with a league-high shooting percentage of 24.5. That's not happening again. When previous in his career, he topped out at 19. So I'd be very wary about what I do with Sam Reinhart. And actually, Steele, thank you for teeing it up for me, because Brandon Montour is in somewhat of a similar situation when only a season ago he had 107 penalty minutes, 73 points, and filled out the stat sheet like a beautician, 242 shots on net. And then this year, I know his injury, he missed, I think, 16 games. I know that obviously threw a wrinkle into his production, but that, again, you look previous in his career. Is he an effective defenseman? Can he play at both ends of the ice? Is he a good skater? He's got a very underrated shot. However, what do you pay him when he really only had one really big fantasy season? Is he still fantasy relevant? Yeah, because he throws hits, block shots, he gets PIMs, and even at 33 to 40 point realm, which I think is much more in his wheelhouse, maybe 45, is still very fantasy relevant. I think Bill Zito has a very interesting summer on his hands here, Steele, and I would lean toward paying Montour a very reasonable deal, bringing back one of your best defensemen, and maybe letting Sam Reinhart go. If he wants far too much money, Bill Zito's not going to pay that guy that money.
Yeah, if he wants far too much, it's just not going to happen because, again, like I said,
this is all speculation. So hard to speculate when we're not even done playing hockey yet.
All speculation, but like I said, they got under $20 million in cap space, and between Sam Reinhart, Brandon Montour, again, do you want to bring back Anthony Stolarz, who had a great season for them as well? When you've still got Spencer Knight
I would
under
say
contract
yes.
for the night, I would say yes as well.
Yeah.
You've got Anton Lundell as an RFA as well. How much are you going to pay him? Ryan Lomberg, Nick Cousins. This is a big offseason for Bill Zito, but obviously the two top priorities is trying to get a deal done with Brandon Montour and Sam Reinhart right now. But like you said, if Sam Reinhart is asking for too much money and it's just not feasible, yeah, I would look towards just signing Brandon Montour for a very team friendly, well-balanced, well-negotiated contract where every party's happy. So, again, depending on how much Sam Reinhart's asking for, it's going to be an interesting summer for Bill Zito. We're going to continue. We got one more player each to talk about for unrestricted free agents. We're going to talk about the New York Rangers and Florida Panthers Game 5 action back at Madison Square Garden. And, of course, our same-game parlays for big-time bets. We're going to get there very, very quickly. We do appreciate all that love and support you show us throughout the season, throughout this offseason, throughout the playoffs, and just showing us all that love. So thank you so much for tuning in for today's podcast of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, making it your first listen every single day. And once again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. We really
Thursday's episode, baby.
Thursday's episode. We really do appreciate all that love and support you show us. So again, thank you so much for continuing to show us the love through the playoffs, show us the love through the offseason.
Tuning in.
Throughout the offseason and tuning in every single day. Flip, over to you, my friend. Your third UFA that you're very intrigued about what's going to happen this offseason.
Another 40-goal scorer and another team that has some decisions to be made as well, Steele, because the Vegas Golden Knights, Chandler Stevenson is a UFA, Anthony Mantha, UFA, Marchessault, UFA, Michael Amadio, UFA. On the back end, Alec Martinez. So there's going to be some little bit roster shuffling, not a ton in Vegas, but obviously Marchessault at the top of that list. And after coming off a 42-goal season, Steele, and a year before that, 28 goals, year before that, 30 goals, I'm saying Jonathan Marchessault, I know he's like a smooth skater, good finisher, good passer, sees the ice well. I look at him as an offensive specialist. And even though he threw in 107 hits this year and 40 PIMs, I really like this guy's offensive upside, as in, and I know he's playing with Jack Eichel right now. I don't know where he's going to go. This is one of those ones that other players we had more of a feel for. They might return. Reinhart looks like he might test the open waters a little bit to try and get that bag. I don't know what Marchessault wants to do. I don't know what the Vegas Golden Knights want to do. I know that Kelly McCrimmon is one of the best GMs going. We gave some love to Billy Zito. Let's give some love to Kelly McCrimmon as well, to be honest. I don't know what the view is here, the vision, Steele, because if Marchessault goes to another team, no disrespect to Jack Eichel, but slots in somewhere else with another couple of studs, I could see Marchessault being a very sneaky add in fantasy drafts. I don't mean add, I mean pick. That might actually go up from 69 points. I know that's a career year. I could see even more out of him. I know he's 33 years old. I'm a little bit too high on this player. But Marchessault last year, 42 goals, 266 shots on net, Steele. Like I said, he chipped in with 107 hits. Very valuable fantasy asset, and one that I have of all the players that I've mentioned. And we're looking at, there's also Victor Arvidsson out there, Brady Shea. There is a number of intriguing names: Elias Lindholm, Patty Kane, Matt Duchene. Marchessault, for me, in terms of maybe getting a little bit more out of him next year, Steele, with the right fit, that's how I'm looking at Marchessault. He is a UFA that I think is going to also get paid. However, I just don't know by who.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting what happens with this player, especially because Vegas does not have much cap space right now, especially after signing Noah Hannafin to that deal.
Exactly.
Tomas Hertl as well. It's going to be very difficult. I do believe that Jonathan Marchessault would love to stay in Vegas. I think Vegas would love to keep him, but just trying to figure out where you go from here with the limited amount of room they have in the cap space is going to be difficult, especially, again, having a 40-plus goal season, having one of the best seasons of his career as well. It's going to be very difficult for Kelly McCrimmon in the Vegas Golden Knights front office to try to get something done. And again, being at 33 years old and having probably the best season of his career, it's going to be very interesting what this team does because of what they did at the NHL trade deadline. Again, acquiring Noah Hannafin, Tomas Hertl, and Anthony Mantha, and some other players, getting Mark Stone back from the LTIR. Yeah. It's going to be very interesting what both these teams do in the offseason. My final player before we get over to Big Time Bets, Same Game Parlay. I'm going to make it real quick. I just find this very interesting because I still have a lot of belief in this player, and I still see quite a bit of fantasy value with Max Pacioretty of the Washington Capitals.
Whoa, this is
very
a deep
interesting.
Cut.
This is a deep cut. There's a little bit of a, kind of a little bit of a side quest, if you will.
Whoa.
But Max Pacioretty signed a 1-year deal with the Washington Capitals at $4 million. Again, this is a player that has dealt with very significant injuries the last 3 years with Washington, with Carolina, with Vegas. He tore his Achilles back-to-back pretty much, after 5 games with Carolina.
Brutal.
But I still see fantasy value with this player. He's 35 years old. He can still get it done. And, with the season Washington had, he had 23 points in 47 games. And that was a team that struggled to score offensively. Struggled just in the offensive zone. So for me, with 23 points in 47 games, 25 penalty minutes, he's still throwing the body around, 76 hits, 22 blocks in 47 games. There's still fantasy value to be had. And then even just going back to his time with Carolina, 3 goals in 5 games. The season before that, he had 37 points in 39 games. We've talked about this player a lot, about when he's healthy and he's in the lineup, he's close to a point per game type of player. And obviously, you got to be worried about the injuries that have gone on with him the last 3 seasons. But I think when you look at Max Pacioretty and you start looking towards the back end of the draft, you start getting towards the 15th, 16th, 17th round, I think he could be a very, very sneaky good because if he stays healthy, if he does stay healthy, he is going to be a very hot commodity in the NHL because, again, like when he's in the lineup, he's a very strong forward, a very strong fantasy player. And that's a guy that I'm very interested to see where he signs because I think for the rest of his career, he's going to be ring chasing. He's going to be going to some very top tier teams.
Oh, yeah, he'll be ring chasing.
And he's going to be taking, 1 year, 2 year deals at $2 million, be team friendly deals. So that's why I find Max Pacioretty very interesting about where he could possibly go this offseason because of what his future in the NHL stands for right now.
Definitely a deeper cut. This guy, though, in back-to-back years with the Montreal Canadiens, had 11 game-winning goals and 10 game-winning goals. I believe that led the league both years. He's a finisher. He's also gotten it done in the postseason. 51 career points in 78 career postseason games. Are the injuries a clear concern? Yes, but maybe he slots in somewhere huge. I don't even know. Like, obviously, Colorado doesn't make a ton of sense, but if he slots into a team with like that kind of offensive studliness, and I know not a ton of teams can match Colorado, but if he goes to a really good situation and somehow slots in maybe on a second line or gets a second power play unit opportunity, I could see it. Steele, very quickly, I wanted to hit you with this because now the episode's getting a little long in the tooth. We always try and hit you guys with a 30-minute breakdown of everything you need to know, fantasy, news, and bets in 30 minutes. Neat and tidy little package. So here we go. I don't think we've seen the best from the New York Rangers this series, Steele. They've been a little sloppy at times. And to me, if I'm the Florida Panthers, that would make me somewhat nervous. Are they? No, because they are a really good team and they're coached by Paul Maurice. However, if I'm a Florida Panther fan, I might be looking at this like we haven't even seen their best game. If they tighten it up, this is going to be a 7-game battle, 100 P. So let me spit this out. Same game parlay. I'm going under 5.5, Steele. I think you're going to see exactly that. The Rangers tighten the screws, bring the physicality. Igor Shesterkin's going to have to stand on his head, which I think he does. So hit me with the under right with Artemi Panarin anytime assist. I think he needs to be a whole lot better. He had 2 assists in the previous game, and I think he's going to do what he does and distribute along with lock of the night. I'm copping out because it's a same game parlay. You're going to get about a plus 320 odd on this. Rangers plus 1.5. It's at minus, I believe, 210. So on its own, it's obviously not worth it. But I love hedging on a plus 1.5 here. It's going to be, in my mind, a 3-2 final, a 2-1 final, something like that. I hope I didn't just pooch my under. But give me the Rangers plus 1.5, Panarin anytime assist, and under 5.5. That's going to get you a payout at about plus 310 or 320. So it's not the greatest, but it's not too bad. And those are my 3 picks in Lock of the Night, Steele.
So we have one side bet in this same game parlay.
You're going over?
I'm going with the over 5.5 in this matchup. So let me explain. So my first pick of the night, I'm going with the Rangers on the money line at plus 104. Like you said, I don't think we've seen the best from the New York Rangers. I think they know that as well, and they've been very close in a lot of these games, pretty much every single game except for game 1. Mm-hmm. So we haven't seen the best. They're going to bring it back out at their top tiered level, back at Madison Square Garden, back in New York. So Rangers on the money line at plus 104 is my first pick. I like the Rangers-Panthers over 5.5 at plus 112 just because of the odds. I actually might tee it down to over 4.5 in this matchup just to, take a little bit of a less odd, but I'd feel a lot more comfortable with the over 4.5. That's exactly how I'm
feeling with the plus 1.5. So I'm here for this take.
So as of right now, I'm keeping it at Rangers-Panthers over 5.5 at plus 112, but I still might tee it down to over 4.5 before game time. And then my lock of the night, Alexis Lafreniere, anytime goal scorer, plus 300 right now. 3 goals in his last 2 games, 7 goals in 14 postseason games this playoffs. And if you combine all 3 of those odds, the Rangers money line plus 104, the over 5.5 plus 112, and the Lafreniere anytime goal at plus 300, you're getting an odd of plus 920, $10 to win $92. Pretty good.
Yep.
But again, I might tee it down to over 4.5 because of, like you said, could be a little bit of a tighter physical game.
I think it's going to be exactly that. Have to give a shout out. I just recently found this out through my sister. Will Cooley attended my elementary school in the West End of Toronto, so I'm all in on the Rangers out of the East deal. Will
There we
Cooley all
go.
day.
There
There's
we
an Etsy
go.
t-shirt in the works. I might not wear it out in public too much for my obvious allegiances to Toronto. However, shout out to Will Cooley. Shout out to Fern Public School as well. We're going to get it done here in Game 5.
Quick little shout out to Will Cooley. Absolutely love it. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Those are the big time bets. Those are the same game parlay and the lock of the night. Make sure you go check out Locked On Sports today. They've launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and you can also find them on the free Amazon Fire TV channel app. Make sure you go subscribe and check out their podcast. And once again, thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there tonight, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.